Brother Dale, you touched on this a little bit earlier, and I'm sure that there's a lot of Christians that don't even consider the paragraphs.
Sure.
They just go chapter to chapter.
Yeah, right.
They don't even know what that little paragraph
Yeah,
mark is in
yeah.
their Bible. But you mentioned, preaching paragraphs. So I'm going to ask you this way. Why expound on paragraphs in the Bible?
A little bit about what we touched on a little earlier. Now, let me say this. You have to be a little bit careful because I've noticed, and I'm sure you have, and most Bible students have, paragraphs are separated a little different in some study Bibles, but not totally different. There'll be maybe a line or two difference. But the reason I think it's important, it's not, maybe not necessarily, this is maybe too strong a word, it's maybe not vital, but I think it's important to preach. I think it's important to study the Bible by paragraphs because in the English language, in the paragraphs of Scripture, in paragraphs of a novel, in paragraphs of any book, every paragraph has a main sentence, a main thought. Well, in the Bible, when you study the paragraph, and here's the reason why you don't necessarily have to do it by chapters. Sometimes in a chapter, not every time, but most of the times in a chapter, there's more than one paragraph. So if you find a paragraph, you're going to find the main sentence. You're going to find the main thought. That's how a paragraph is developed. That's how it's designed in the English language. Well, in the Bible, and this is so exciting to me, in the Bible, when you find the main thought of that paragraph, that's your message. That's your title. That's your subject. And the Bible is such an amazing book. When you find that main thought, and sometimes it's the first line. Many times in the Bible, it's somewhere in the middle of the paragraph. Sometimes it's at the end of the paragraph. But when you find that main thought or that main sentence, you find the thought that God is emphasizing. And here's what's wonderful about the Scriptures. Such an amazing book. When you develop that thought, that paragraph surrounds that. Everything that is mentioned in that paragraph, there's an introduction most of the time to that main thought. And then after you get that main thought, it's just developing that main thought. I just finished a study in 2 Corinthians. And that one verse in 2 Corinthians asks this question or makes this statement. But if our gospel be hid, Paul writing, emphasizing the gospel of Jesus Christ, that passage of Scripture is amazing because every verse before that phrase, it's introducing that thought. And then after that phrase, but if our gospel be hid, it just emphasizes what happens if we hide the gospel. It's hid to those that are lost, them that perish. It's hid to them that don't know. It emphasizing. So I really believe, even just as a student of the Bible, if you just want to be a devoted student of the Bible, study the Scriptures, find the paragraph. When you find the paragraph, and most study Bibles, even if they don't have study notes, even if it's just no notes, it has a notation or it has the indentation. It tells you where the paragraph is, so that's not hard. But finding the main thought in that paragraph, you have your message, you have your lesson, you have what God is emphasizing. And so I think it's very important as an expository preacher, as a teacher, to separate it in paragraphs. And it's not vital. It's not something you can preach a whole chapter. Now, I will say this, especially if you're a preacher or a teacher in Sunday school, whatever the situation is. Sometimes when you try to preach the whole paragraph, you get too much in there. When God is just really trying to tell you one thing in that paragraph instead of the whole chapter. So I think that a paragraph, separations of paragraph will help you. It'll help you stay in your thought, your focus, where you need to be as a student.